Have you ever wondered how a man could challenge a king, survive a drought, and even bring a child back to life? This is not a tale from a modern superhero comic, but the story of Elijah, a prophet who emerged in the northern kingdom of Israel during the 9th century BCE. His presence is as sudden as it is striking, stepping onto the scene during the reigns of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. At a time when the Israelites had turned away from Yahweh, the God of Israel, Elijah boldly prophesied a drought that would last for years, a direct challenge to Baal, the storm and fertility god the Israelites had turned to under Jezebel's influence. After delivering this prophecy, Elijah was commanded by God to go into hiding. Miraculously sustained by ravens bringing him food, and by a widow in Zarephath, whose dead son he brought back to life, Elijah's story had only just begun. Imagine a showdown between one man and hundreds of false prophets, with the stakes being nothing less than the faith of a nation. The stage was set on Mount Carmel. Elijah, the lone prophet of Yahweh, stood against 450 prophets of Baal, the Canaanite storm and fertility god. The challenge was simple, yet profound. Each would prepare a bull for sacrifice and lay it on an altar, but not ignite it. Instead, the true deity would be called upon to send down fire from heaven to consume the offering. The prophets of Baal went first. They called on their god, prayed fervently, danced around the altar, but silence was their only answer. Desperate to summon Baal's attention, they resorted to slashing their bodies until they were covered in blood. Yet their cries echoed unanswered, their sacrifice untouched. Then came Elijah's turn. He did more than just prepare his sacrifice. He rebuilt the altar of Yahweh, using 12 stones representing the 12 tribes of Israel. To underscore the magnitude of the miracle about to take place, he drenched the sacrifice and the wood in water, not once, not twice, but 3 times, until the trench around the altar was filled. With a calm confidence, Elijah called upon Yahweh. The response was immediate and awe-inspiring. Fire fell from heaven, consuming the offering, the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trench. This was no ordinary fire. This was the divine fire of Yahweh, a clear sign of his power and presence. The people who witnessed this could only react in one way. They fell on their faces, declaring with newfound faith, "The Lord, He is God." In the aftermath of this divine demonstration, Elijah ordered the prophets of Baal to be executed, marking a significant victory for the God of Israel. Shortly afterward, rain returned to the land, ending the years-long drought. And yet, even after this great victory, Elijah's greatest challenges were still ahead. What happens when a hero falls into despair? For Elijah, it led to a journey of discovery and divine encounters. Despite his victorious showdown on Mount Carmel, Elijah was far from jubilant. A death threat from Queen Jezebel plunged him into a state of fear and desolation. The prophet who had stood unflinchingly before a king who had challenged hundreds of Baal's prophets now found himself running for his life, fleeing into the wilderness. There, under a solitary broom tree, Elijah succumbed to despair. He felt alone, abandoned, and prayed for his life to end. But God had other plans. An angel appeared, not with a booming voice or grand revelations, but with food and water. A simple, yet profound act of care, reminding Elijah that he was not forgotten, that he was loved. Strengthened by this divine sustenance, Elijah embarked on a 40-day journey to Mount Horeb, also known as Mount Sinai, a place of great significance, the very mountain where God had revealed himself to Moses centuries earlier. At Mount Horeb, Elijah experienced a powerful windstorm, a terrifying earthquake, and a blazing fire. Yet God was not in any of these. And then, in the silent aftermath, God spoke, not in a thunderous voice or a dramatic spectacle, but in a gentle whisper, a still small voice. A voice that cut through Elijah's despair, reaching directly into his heart. In this tranquil encounter, Elijah received fresh instructions. He was to anoint new leaders and appoint Elisha as his successor. God reassured Elijah that he was not alone, that there were still 7,000 in Israel who remained faithful, a divine antidote to his feelings of isolation and despair. In his darkest hour, Elijah discovered a God who nurtures, who reaches out in the quiet moments, who whispers hope and reassurance into weary hearts. He found a God who is not just in the dramatic and powerful events, but also in the silence, in the stillness. Elijah's journey was not yet over, and his final chapter is one of the most intriguing in the Bible. How does a man who has walked with God end his earthly journey? In Elijah's case, it was not with death, but with a miraculous ascension. This was the extraordinary finale of a life dedicated to the service of Yahweh, the God of Israel. Elijah and his successor, Elisha, were journeying together. Their companionship was about to be abruptly interrupted by a spectacle that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of biblical history. As they were walking, a chariot of fire, drawn by horses of fire, appeared out of nowhere. This divine vehicle did not come to carry them both away. Instead, it served to separate the two prophets. The scene that followed was as awe-inspiring as it was mysterious. A whirlwind arose, not a destructive one, but a divine one. This was no ordinary gust of wind. It was a heavenly vehicle, a divine force that swept Elijah off his feet, lifting him up and away from the earth. Elisha, his eyes wide with amazement, watched as his mentor, his friend, was taken up to heaven in this whirlwind. There was no sorrow, no mourning, for this was not a death. It was an ascension, a glorification, a testament to the life of a man who had faithfully served his God. As Elijah ascended, his mantle, the symbol of his prophetic authority, slipped from his grasp and fell to the earth. Elisha picked it up, the weight of it heavy with significance. This mantle was more than a piece of cloth. It was a symbol of the prophetic office, a mantle of responsibility that Elisha was ready to take up. The work of Elijah would continue, his legacy carried on by Elisha, the man he had anointed as his successor. The story of Elijah serves as a powerful reminder of the divine rewards that await those who remain steadfast in their faith and dedication to God. And so, Elijah's earthly journey came to an end, not with death, but with a miraculous ascension, leaving a legacy of faith and courage that continues to inspire us today.